The science of immortality. The 77 days of horror behind Egypt's 4,000-year preservation. We all know the pyramids are a great wonder, but the true masterpiece of ancient Egypt isn't massive stone blocks. It's the ability to defeat death, the power to transform a decaying body into an immortal vessel. This is not a fairy tale. This is a terrifying ritual, a 77-day process involving an incredible fusion of chemistry, anatomy, and religious magic. We are talking about the removal of the brain with an iron hook through the nostril, about cutting away everything except a single organ, and about turning a human being into a salty, preserved sculpture. Today we will step inside the secret chamber of the embalmers, where Anubis and his priests perform the science of immortality. Join Ancient Chronicle as we unveil the chilling and complex truth behind the 77 days of horror that preserved a civilization for 4 millennia. If you are ready to explore the deepest and most gruesome rituals of history, subscribe to the channel now and hit the notification bell to unlock these secrets with us. Part 1. Preparing for the ultimate journey to understand the mummification process, we must first grasp the philosophy behind it. The ancient Egyptians did not fear death. They viewed it as a transition. The purpose of embalming was not merely preservation, but ensuring that the physical vessel remained intact so the soul could return. The theology of the body. In Egyptian belief, a person was composed of multiple spiritual elements, and life after death required the unification of all these parts. The most crucial elements were the Ka, life force, the vital energy, the double of the living person, which needed sustenance and a place to reside in the tomb. The Bia, personality soul, the element of individuality, the ability to travel between the world of the dead and the living, often depicted as a human-headed bird. The Ak, transfigured spirit, the soul that has been transformed, proven worthy in the afterlife, and achieved true immortality. For the Ba to recognize and reunite with the Ka after death, the physical body had to be perfectly preserved. If the body disintegrated, the soul would wander forever, never achieving Ak. This theological necessity turned the mummification process into a true art form and a demanding science. The servants of Anubis. The embalming process lasted approximately 70 days, some accounts say 77, a period reflecting the astronomical cycle observed for the star Sirius. The executors were not merely doctors, but priests extensively trained in anatomy, chemistry, and ritual. The chief priest, who performed the most critical manipulations, would wear the mask of the jackal-headed god, Anubis, the deity of death and embalming. This act was more than ritualistic. It provided spiritual reassurance to the deceased that they were being guided by the divine conductor himself. The deceased's family would pay a substantial fee, depending on the level of luxury desired. The process began with moving the body to the Ibu, the place of purification. and then to the per-nefer, the house of embalming. Once the body was placed upon the slanted stone slab, the most horrifying phase commenced. Part 2. The organ removal and the iron hook. The primary objective of this phase was to remove all sources of moisture that could cause putrefaction. This involved two key elements, the brain and the internal organs. 1. The brain extraction maneuver. The brain was the first organ to be removed, and the maneuver was perhaps the most gruesome. Egyptians did not consider the brain the center of intellect or emotion. They considered the heart the seat of consciousness. Thus, the brain was merely extraneous matter that needed to be discarded. The process involved inserting a long, sharp iron hook, similar to a fishing barb, up the nostril, piercing the thin bone membrane separating the nasal cavity from the skull. The embalmer would then vigorously churn the hook to break up the brain tissue into liquid form. This entire substance would then be drained out through the nose or by tilting the body. This operation was not only macabre, but demonstrated a surprisingly sophisticated understanding of basic human anatomy. The emptied cranial cavity was then cleansed with palm wine and packed with resin and linen to prevent the ingress of insects and mold. The sacrificed viscera. Following the brain, the internal organs were the next priority. The body would be slit with a long incision on the lower left side of the abdomen. This cut was often performed by a lesser priest who would then ritually flee because he had defiled the body, a ritual designed to preserve the purity of the higher priests. Most organs, liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines, were removed, washed thoroughly with palm wine and aromatic spices. However, there was one single organ kept inside the body, the heart. Egyptians believed the heart housed the intellect, memory, and most importantly, was the organ that would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at during the judgment of Osiris. The removed organs were not discarded. They were dried and carefully stored in the 4 canopic jars, each protected by one of the 4 sons of Horus. Imseti, human head, protected the liver. Duamutef, jackal head, protected the stomach. Hapi, baboon head, protected the lungs. Kibesenuef, falcon head, protected the intestines. After the evisceration, the body cavity was thoroughly cleaned, then filled with resin and linen or sawdust packages to maintain the body's natural shape, preparing it for the critical next phase. Part 3. Dehydration, cleansing, and the 40 days of salt. Once the perishable organs were removed, the body proceeded to the longest and most critical chemical phase, dehydration. This step ensured permanent preservation. 1. The magic of natron. The key element in this process was natron, a naturally occurring salt, a mixture of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, mined from the salty lakes near the Nile. Natron possesses extremely powerful hygroscopic properties. The body was completely covered in a thick layer of natron salt. Natron bags were then placed inside the abdominal and thoracic cavities to draw moisture out from within. This step lasted approximately 40 days, the dehydration period, the sensory experience. During these 40 days, the deceased's body lay on a slanted stone table to allow residual fluids to drain. The natron chemically replaced all the water in the cells with salt, hardening and drying the skin and muscle tissue. This was the stage of metamorphosis from an organic body to a sustainable substance, removing up to 75% of the body's original weight. 2. The finishing touches. After 40 days, the body was thoroughly cleaned of the hardened natron crust. The skin was now wrinkled and tough. To make the deceased resemble their living self, the embalmers performed restoration maneuvers. They massaged oil, butter, and resin into the skin to soften and plump the features. They placed linen pads under the skin to fill out sunken areas. They attached wigs and applied makeup. Fingernails and toenails were often capped with gold or thin linen to ensure they wouldn't detach during the journey. The body was now ready for the final, roughly 30-day phase. Bandaging and magic. Part 4. Bandaging, amulets, and the final prayers. During the final 30 days, the spirit of the deceased was guided through the most complex rituals. This was a synergy of meticulous craftsmanship and spiritual power. 1. The art of linen wrapping. The embalmers used hundreds of yards of bleached linen cloth. The wrapping process was not random. It was a painstaking art form, where each finger, toe, and small detail was wrapped individually before the entire body was bundled into multiple layers. Each layer of linen was secured with liquid resin, which acted as a hardened adhesive, turning the entire body into a protective shell against the elements. While wrapping, the priests continuously recited spells from the Book of the Dead, a spiritual roadmap and instruction manual for the wandering soul. 2. The power of the amulets. Between the layers of bandaging, the embalmers placed amulets made of gold, gemstones, or faience. Each amulet served a specific protective purpose. Finger amulets, to protect the extremities. The Jed Pillar amulet, a symbol of Osiris's spine, representing stability and strength. The Scarab amulet, the sacred beetle, the most crucial one, placed over the heart. The scarab symbolized rebirth, and was often inscribed with a spell instructing the heart not to bear false witness when it was weighed against the feather of Ma'at. 3. The opening of the mouth ceremony. The final and most important ritual was the opening of the mouth ceremony. After the body was placed in the coffin, priests would touch the mouth, nose, and eyes of the mummy with ritual instruments. This act was believed to restore the deceased's senses, the ability to eat, speak, see, and hear in the afterlife, completing the transformation from a corpse to Akh, the transfigured spirit. The chilling, costly, and complex 77-day journey is the clearest reflection of the Egyptian obsession with immortality. It was a scientific achievement unparalleled by any other ancient civilization. What part of the process do you find the most gruesome? The removal of the brain, or the cold stillness of the 40 days submerged in natron salt? Leave your comment, Natron, below and share your thoughts. If you are captivated by historical mysteries that demand deep analysis, don't forget to subscribe to the Ancient Chronicle channel to continue our journey uncovering the forgotten truths.